Hi, welcome back. It's good to be back and good to have my voice back this week. I've just returned to Israel, so it's good to be home and back with you again. Last time we were together, we talked about the idea of a learning management system, and it's been great to get most of your invitations. I've registered for a lot of classes over the past week or so. If you haven't sent it to me yet, that's fine. You can still do that. But hopefully our week off last week gave you a chance to catch up a little bit and get back on target with our goals. This week we're going to talk about working with content that we find on the internet. We're going to take a look at what's available to us and what can help us, and also how we can make sure that what we find online is indeed accurate and trustworthy. When we open up the internet as a resource for our students, for ourselves as a resource, we really have to make sure that the information we're getting is legitimate and can be trusted. So we'll take a look at how we can make sure that actually happens. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are. Today we're going to talk about working with web content. And like we said in the introduction, we rely on the internet now for just about everything. We've taken a look ourselves and our program together at some examples in tools that we can use with our students for preparation. The internet, we obviously know, is a very large resource full of great information, but we have to also realize that the internet has some information that we may not want to share with our students. Or if we do share it and we do use it, we may want to make sure that we are keeping in mind certain issues concerning copyright laws and sharing preferences. So in today's lesson, we're going to take a look at some ways that we can make sure that the web content with which we're working is the best possible content and that we are doing everything in the best possible ways. So let's get started. So first of all, we talk about, and we've talked about this together, how can we maximize our technology tools? We know that we have all these goals of using technology in our classroom, bringing in great materials, lessons we find online, tools that we use online. These tools are here, but we just have to make sure, like I said, that we use them correctly. There's a very funny and very famous clip from an episode of The Simpsons from about 15 years ago. It shows you how long The Simpsons have been on. But Bart comes to his mother and says, "Mom, I'm bored." So she says to him, go use the internet. And he comes back 2 seconds later and he says, "Okay, Mom, I finished the internet." And obviously the joke here is that you can never finish the internet. The internet is growing at an exponential rate every single day, and it's full of amazing content that we can use to better our educational experiences, to better our own educations and our own productivity. However, we have to be careful that what we are using for ourselves and what we are sharing with our students is the most factual and legitimate information that is out there. So, a few questions to ask and some things to consider when you're starting to look for that online content. First of all, the first question I always ask, in Google we trust? And I put this with a question mark, so really it's in Google we trust. A lot of people have said to me over the years, especially students, I've said to them, where did you find this particular article or where did you find this content? And they tell me, oh, I found it in Google. And I always say, no, you didn't find it in Google. Google is not a website where you find information. Google is a search engine. Google led you to a specific website, whether it be history.com or Torah.org, or wherever you're looking for information. Google led you to a place with information. But Google did not give you the information. Google is just what we're using as the search engine. So we have to remember that Google cannot be counted on to show us necessarily the most factual information. Google is showing us the information that is most readily available in its search algorithms. Now, most of the time, Google is a great search engine. It's probably the only search engine I use most of the time nowadays, but we also have to remember that sometimes, especially when we're dealing with education, that just because it's at the top of Google's list, it doesn't mean that it's the best source. So we can't just blindly Google. We have to kind of make sure that what Google brings us in our search results is in fact what we're looking for. The second point here, Wikipedia is only good to a point. Students and teachers love Wikipedia. We're going to be taking a look at the idea of wikis, and we've actually reviewed it a little bit earlier in this program. But Wikipedia, if you Google any term, any point of history, any holiday, whatever it is, Wikipedia will probably be near the top of the search algorithms list. And Wikipedia is a decent website to a certain point. However, what you have to remember is that the whole concept behind wikis, and certainly Wikipedia is the most famous wiki of them all, wikis can be edited by anybody. You or I can go on to any wiki page and make changes to it. So what does that mean for the factual basis of the information? Most of the time, the articles and the information we find on Wikipedia are fine because there are fact checkers going through. However, that's not 100%. I have had cases where students have used Wikipedia as a main source and have ended up delivering information that was less than 100% correct. As teachers, we always want to make sure, obviously, what we're delivering to our students is the best possible information. And my recommendation with Wikipedia is that you never use it as your only source. If you find something on Wikipedia that you think is great, double check to make sure that it's actually factual. How do you do that? Well, just find the information, the same information on a different website. So at least then you have two sources corroborating the facts, and then you're usually okay. But Wikipedia, we have to remember, can be edited by anybody in the world. It's an open site. And if you didn't know that, I'm telling you now, it's something that we have to be very careful of, because just because it's on Wikipedia, it doesn't mean that it's 100% correct. When I assign projects to my students, by the way, I always tell them that if they are using Wikipedia, that they have to have another source. They cannot use Wikipedia as their standalone source because of this issue and because of this concern. So keep that in mind when you're looking for information online. The third thing here is safety first. Again, you know, we've talked about using online content. We've talked about giving online content to our students via websites. Make sure, and I've said this before, make sure that what you are giving to your students and what you're using for your own preparation is not only factual, like we discussed here. That's, of course, important. But make sure it's actually safe. Make sure, you don't know how many stories I've heard from teachers who blindly assigned websites that they found or that they were given by other people to their students, and pictures popped up, ads popped up that maybe aren't appropriate for the classroom. And obviously you don't want that. You don't want a good intended lesson to turn into a problem. So always keep safety in mind first. If you're sharing web content or resources with your students, make sure that you've taken the time to review it yourself. Don't take somebody else's word for it. Don't take, even if it's somebody you know, spend the time to do it yourself. And this is true for any web content, websites, YouTube videos, articles, etc. And that's important. The fourth one here, just because it's free online, it doesn't mean it's mine. Sorry, it got cut off a little bit. Just because it's free online, it does not mean it's mine. Again, we can Google anything. We can find almost any information online. In fact, one of the projects I do when I'm teaching my intro to technology classes with both students and adults is I give the students a list of things to find online. It may be articles, it may be videos, it may be other content. Just because it's online, like it says here, we have to remember that we do live in a world of copyrighted materials. And we always have to make sure that we're getting the information, especially when we're sharing it with students. We want to make sure that that information is coming from legal and legitimate sources. And I'll show you some examples later on. We can find almost anything, but it doesn't mean that it's ours to take. And we have to keep that in mind. It's interesting because here in Israel, the copyright laws are very different than they are for you in the U.S. So when I do this kind of seminar for Israeli teachers, I actually have to change the information. But for U.S. teachers, copyrighted materials are very important. And the last thing you want to do is share something with your students that is not yours to share in the first place. You don't want to create a problem for yourself. So these are just some things to keep in mind as you're getting ready to look for your information online. Now, let's do a little bit of an exercise here. This is an exercise I always do with my teachers and students. Listed here, I'm not going to go through all of these right now, are some websites that are real websites, legitimate websites, and some that are fake websites and are not legitimate. Now, I'm going to show you one or two examples, and we'll see if you're able to spot the fakes and to spot the real ones. But the point of this exercise is really very simple. Again, like we said before, just because the information is online, it doesn't mean that we can take it at face value. We always have to make sure that our information is corroborated, that our information is in fact legitimate. So these are just 5 examples. I'm not going to show you all of them. I'm going to show you 2 examples right now. I'm going to show you the first one, dhmo.org, and I'm going to show you this website here, martinlutherking.org, because I think these are the most interesting examples. I'll tell you right now, one of them is fake, one of them is alarmingly real, and we'll see what I mean in a second. Take a look at these other ones. This PowerPoint, again, is available on our website. You can download it. Take a look at these other ones yourself, and as a little extra exercise, I'll be interested to see if you can tell me which ones are real and which ones are not. But anyway, let's start with www.dhmo.org. Okay, here we are at the dhmo.org website. This is a website for the research division of dihydrogen monoxide. And if you read through and you look at it, welcome to the website for the dihydrogen monoxide research division, currently located in Newark, Delaware. The controversy surrounding dihydrogen monoxide has never been more widely debated, and the goal of this site is to provide an unbiased data clearinghouse and a forum for public discussion. So, looks pretty legitimate. This is obviously a .org website, so that's another thing you can always look for. Is it a .com? Is it .org? .edu? Obviously, .org websites are usually going to be educational or nonprofit organizations. This website would fit into that category. Now, for those of you, this is actually a great example. For those of you who are science teachers, you already know the answers to this. DHMO, dihydrogen monoxide, is equal to H2O. It's equal to water. And obviously water is not dangerous, or at least isn't usually dangerous. So this is definitely a fake website. This website was actually created by a college professor who wanted to show his students that not everything they get online should be trusted at face value. And if you go through this website, you'll see that there are a lot of great links here that make it look very convincing. We can go to DHMO FAQs, and it tells you dihydrogen monoxide is a colorless and odorless chemical compound. Not so far from the truth. Should I be concerned about it? And he goes through, and if somebody was looking at this at face value, if they didn't realize that DHMO was the same as H2O, this would be very convincing. And you can go through and kind of see some other examples in this website of some very convincing information. Now, how do we know if we didn't know that DHMO was H2O and we wanted to check to see if this was valid? A couple of ways that we could do this. First of all, the best way, look on the website, any website that you're getting information from, look for the expert that they quote. So if we click on some of these other links, we could probably find some information here or a doctor that they refer to. And you can very simply take that doctor's name or take a copy and paste some of the text anywhere on the website and just open up a new Google window and paste the whole thing right in. And let's see what happens. So if you scroll down far enough, you can start to see some questionable search contents that may lead you to believe that this is not a legitimate website. There are other ways you can do it, but that's really the best way, and it's a way that I recommend my students do with almost every site that they come to. Now, obviously, if you're going to history.com or you're going to a legitimate website that we all know, that's something else. But if you come across a website like this that you've never really heard of, but that looks convincing, Google it. Do some fact checking. Let's see what happens if we copy and paste just the name of the company. And we'll see the first couple pages are the own website, so we have to kind of go past those. But the first one that's not dhmo.org is from a website called Urban Legends. And that's a dead giveaway. If this were a real danger, if this were a real cause, there would be more news articles, there would be more websites devoted to this epidemic. But obviously there is no epidemic here, which is why you don't see more. Okay, so that's dhmo.org. If you have a chance, come visit this website. I think you'll enjoy reading through some of the information. There's actually some very humorous content here. So that's dhmo.org. Now, let's go back to our list. Let's take a look at martinlutherking.org. And again, we'll take a look if we can spell or if we can see whether this website is legitimate or a fake. Very interesting. I went to www.martinlutherking.org and look what came up. It said this web page is not available. So the reason this web page is not available is because this is a great lesson in why we need to double check our facts and where we can be led astray. martinlutherking.org was a website that was actually aimed at dispensing hate material and very racist information about Martin Luther King. If you read some of what was on this website, you would be shocked to learn about what was being said about him, and it would probably disgust you as it disgusted me. But take this, for example, to the other side, and think about when people are trying to learn about the state of Israel online, or when they're trying to learn about other causes that we would not find to be problematic. We always have to make sure, here's a perfect example, that if a student did not know who Martin Luther King was, a student from Israel, for example, if he was asked to do a report on Martin Luther King and came to martinlutherking.org, sounds legitimate enough, the information he would have received from this website would have been very convincing, and who knows what he would have come back to his teacher with. So this website, until it got taken down, was 100% real. It just was not factual. So we always have to be careful, even with websites that sound legitimate. You can take a look at the other ones on your own. RYT Hospital is a good example of a questionable real or fake website. You guys can tell me. Deathclock.com and WeirdEncyclopedia.com are some other examples. Take a look on your own. Again, if you download the PowerPoint presentation from our website, you can just click on these links straightforward, and you don't have to worry about copying them down. Okay, so the first thing we have to do when we're looking for content online, we have to look to make sure it's real. Is the content that we're being given legitimate? And again, the ways we can tell that we talked about, we can just copy and paste some of the content from the website. If we go back here, again, just copy and paste the name of a division, the name of one of the specialists they quote, and you'll know very quickly whether it's a legitimate or illegitimate source. And that's really something you want to do before you introduce something as fact to your students or really to anybody. Okay, so once we do that, the other thing we have to do is let's talk about how we can spot some of the fakes. I've shown you a couple of ways, but there's an epidemic called phishing 101. If you notice how phishing is spelled, P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. It's not phishing with a fishing pole. Phishing is a technique that internet scammers use all the time to try to take advantage of unsuspecting people. They try to take advantage of people who are not as careful as we are and who don't take the time to do the research and the fact-checking that we're talking about now. What phishing means, the classic example of phishing, you may have received them in your own inbox. Let's say you get an email from your bank and they say, please verify your account username and passwords for our records. So people unsuspectingly enter in their username and passwords, and what just happens? They've just given their access to their bank accounts, to their financial information, to a complete stranger. How do we know that it's not the bank itself asking for this information? Well, very simply, rule of thumb, banks, financial institutions, and other credible institutions do not ask for this information online. A bank would never come and ask you to confirm your password. Why? Because they have it already. Very plain and simple. So if you get an email like this is called phishing. And we'll take a look. if we come back to Google, for example, and we Google the term phishing, and we can see here, phishing is the act of attempting to acquire information such as usernames, passwords, and credit card details. And again, you'd be surprised at how many times people are falling for these ploys. Obviously, the people targeted mostly are the uneducated people who are not educated about safe technology use. Senior citizens are the most affected by phishing. They get that email saying, oh, if you don't send us your username and password or your credit card information, we're going to close your account. They don't want that to happen, so they send it, and then all of a sudden we have problems with identity theft and other security issues. So first of all, always be careful. If a bank, a financial institution, somebody asks you for personal information, what I always suggest is, if you're concerned that it may actually be legitimate, you're not sure, call your bank. Call Bank of America, call Wachovia, whoever you do your banking with, and say, I just got this email. Did you guys send this? And they'll tell you very quickly, yes, we did, or no, we did not. And usually the answer will be no, and then you'll have actually done them a favor by logging the report. So if you get something like this and you're not sure, call your bank, call your financial institution, your credit card company. But don't just share information, because that's where you can get in trouble. Now, let's take a look at some ways that we can spot the problems. So first of all, check the URL of the website. The URL is this area up here. www.google.com is a URL, for example, or facebook.com. These are URLs. Now, how do we check a URL? Well, very simply. If a URL is a legitimate website, then chances are, remember before we talked about the end of the website, the .com or the .org or something like that. Now, banks, credible educational institutions, nonprofit organizations, all have standard suffixes for their websites, the .orgs, the .coms, the .edus. If you come across a bank that's sending you, if you get an email, let's say it says bankofamerica.net or bankofamerica.org, this should be a red flag, because we all know that bankofamerica.com is the legitimate website. But these other variations can easily be taken over by the scammers, and that's what they do. So that they'll create a website that looks very much like the real Bank of America website. You'll enter in your credit card information, or not you, but somebody will. And the problem is, though, the information is not going to Bank of America. It's going to the scammers. And now that person's safety is compromised. So this is something you want to be careful of. So the next thing to check, and this is a great tool that most people don't know how to do. Do the links work? Perform a link search. Now, what does that mean? There's a great thing you can do in Google for any website. If you type the word link into the search window with a colon, so link colon, and then you put in any website. So let's say link bonimbiachad.org. What this is going to tell me, all of the pages online that have links to my website, to Bonim Biachad's website. And what can we see from this? Well, let's see what comes up. So what's here is very legitimate. The first one is for the Jewish Day School Conference that I just attended. A web analysis. This is something that I use to monitor my website traffic. So everything here's something from lookstein.org, which we've looked at. The bottom line, Avichai, the bottom line here is that the things coming up are actually legitimate. So this will tell you right away if a website is in fact a legitimate source. Let's try the same thing with the dihydrogen monoxide site. I'm going to copy and paste the URL. Again, I'm going to leave the link colon, and let's see what comes up. So we get the first one, but if we scroll down a little bit, again, past the dhmo.orgs, what's the first one after their own sites is dihydrogen monoxide hoax. So and then the next one, fake websites. So we know right away that there's a problem here. And this link, the colon, can be used for any website. We can even do it for, let's do jecc.org. Let's say we weren't sure if JECC was a legitimate organization, so we could do a link for that. And again, we'll scroll down. Here's the last one for jecc.org. And we see that the searches coming up, the links coming up are legitimate. Here's one for scholarship opportunities, curriculum, normal Israel education, things that sound like they would be associated with JECC. So we know that this is an okay website. So this link search is a great way of making sure that the website, any website for that matter, is a legitimate resource. Most people don't know that this link search exists, so now you know something new. If you get an email, look to see who sent the original message. Did it come from a friend? You know, one of the best ways that scammers, phishers, get through to unsuspecting people is they'll steal somebody's address book, and they'll send out emails to all that person's contacts. So you may get an email that looks like it's from a friend of yours asking you for money or asking for your credit card information. And again, chances are your friend, you know your friends, they didn't send this info. So how do you make sure, how do you check to see if it's real? Call your friend. Say, hi, I just got an email from you asking me for $100. I'm happy to send it to you, but did you really send this? And chances are your friend will say, what are you talking about? I have no idea. So again, 2-second phone call can save you years and years of trouble down the road. Next, does the website ask for personal info? Again, the rule of thumb, like I said before, no credible institution will ask you for your own personal information, your social security numbers, your bank information, your credit card numbers, things like that. They already have it. If they really needed it, what they would do is they'd send you a form in the mail, or they'd send you an email asking you to come into a branch and get it. And they get it that way. Nobody's asking for that online. And if you get asked for that information, that should be a 100% red flag. Any misspellings, sorry, it's covered up, I'm not sure why, but any misspellings or grammar errors. Again, Bank of America wouldn't have grammar errors on their website, but bankofamerica.net may be created by somebody from a different country who doesn't know the English language so well. So if you see something like that, that can be a giveaway as well. And finally, like we said before, which extension is used? Is it a .com or is it something a little less reliable like a .info or a .net or something like that? So these are all things you can look at if you get something via email, or if you come across a website. These are just some very simple ways that you can tell if the information you're looking at is actually legitimate. Okay, so now that we've looked at some very simple yet effective ways to make sure that the information we find is legitimate, is safe, and that we maintain our safe working environments, let's now talk about what we can download. Because what we've talked about so far has been what we can consider legitimate. But the internet is full of downloadable materials as well, and a lot of times we all know we get offers to download things. We have programs we want to download, movies, songs, whatever it is. So let's talk about how we know what can be safely downloaded or not. Okay, so let's continue. So the first thing we have to take a look at is something called the battle between piracy and free domain. And what does that mean? Well, obviously there are certain things that are off limits and that would be illegal to download. If you went to an illegal file sharing site and you downloaded TV shows or movies that are still in the theater, for example, we know that that's possible, but that would be a problem. Free domain, however, is much different. Free domain are programs or are files that are actually free to be downloaded and that we're encouraged to use. So let's take a look to see how do we know what we're allowed to do and what we can't. So what are the rules? We have basically three categories of downloadable files. Open source is what we're going to take a look at first. These are programs, files, resources that have been created for us to use. There are some very famous open source program examples that we'll take a look at. You're probably all using some of these already without even knowing it, but we'll take a look at some examples. The second category are private files. These are personal files that may be available online. through questionable reasons. Private files would include things like I just mentioned, movies, music that we didn't purchase. So these things are obviously problematic. As much as it's easy to do, as much as we'd like to say, okay, you know what, the record labels are making enough money anyway, according to U.S. law, it is problematic to go and to download an album without paying for it. What people decide to do, that's really up to each person, but from a strictly legal point of view, we have to be careful here. The third category is public domain. So what's included there? Public domain are things that are considered free. They're things that are considered universal resources. Many of the pictures we find online, for example, are considered public domain. If we are trying to find a picture, let's say, of the Aseret HaDibrot, of the Ten Commandments, there are certain images that at this point have just been considered public domain. Anybody can take advantage of them and use them. We should always give a photo credit if we can, but they're there to take, and it's not illegal to copy the picture to a presentation or to a project. This would also include any type of text that is considered universal. So, for example, if you were obtaining or copying psukim or verses from the Bible, whether it be the Old Testament, the New Testament, these are we don't have to cite God as our source for the material. If we're doing a PowerPoint presentation for our students and we need to quote a couple of psukim, or we need to quote a passage from the Talmud or something like that, that's considered public domain because it's material that's now been made online, universal for everybody. So these are the three categories. Okay, let's talk about open source software first, because I think that this is really the one that is really closest to what we need. Open source software is free or low-cost software available for unlimited use. Most of the open source titles, and we'll take a look at one or two examples in a second, are free versions of existing programs, and they were created for whatever reason because the creators wanted to give users a free alternative to having to pay for expensive programs. So if you're using open source software, there's totally nothing wrong with this. This is 100% okay. How do they work? Open source software relies on peer review and feedback. So it means that if you are using open source software, they want you to come and say this was a great download, or if you had to pay something for it, even if it was only $1 or $2, this was a great purchase. Because what happens, that encourages other people to use the tool as well. Basically, the idea of open source software is that it promotes higher quality at a lower cost. The big example, which we'll take a look at in a second, is Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office is a program that most of us need and rely on for everything we do, productivity-wise. We have Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and the rest of them, but it's a very expensive program, and there are actually free alternatives that would fall into the open source category. So this is open source software. Let's take a look at some examples. These are some very popular open source software examples. Audacity is a free program that you can download for podcasting and to edit audio tracks. I've used this with students for podcasting projects, which we'll be talking about later on in our course. But again, this is a professional suite program. It's 100% free. And not only do they want you to download it, but they encourage you to download it. If you were to Google free audio editing software, Audacity would be at the top of the list, no question. OpenOffice is a great alternative to Microsoft Office. We'll take a look at that one in a second together, but basically they give you free versions of all of the Office programs, including Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Access, and the rest of them. Screen Hunter is another one I use all the time for capturing images on the screen. It's a free program you can download, and with one keystroke you can capture either a specific part of the screen or the entire screen. It's up to you. VLC is a great video player. The standard video player that comes with your computer is probably, if you have a PC, Windows Media Player. VLC is a great program simply because it plays almost anything. It plays MP4s and AVI files and MOV files, and if you don't know what those are, don't worry about it, but the point is that VLC is a very universal video player and is a great resource to have on your computer. And finally, the last example I put here was paint.net. If you like to edit photos, whether it's removing red eye or adding people to your photos or changing backgrounds, whatever, the most famous program to do that is Photoshop, made by Adobe. But Photoshop is a very expensive program. Photoshop starts, I believe, at $450 for one copy. And most people who are using this for personal use, that's a steep price for one program. Paint.net was created as an alternative, and it's absolutely free to download. So these are just a couple of examples of programs you can download absolutely for free, 100% legal, and these are open source software examples. Let's go back to our window here. I'll show you just one example because I think it's a great resource. Is OpenOffice. Again, we were talking before about extensions. OpenOffice is a .org website. And we can see here that this is because it's a free service. It's a free resource. So you can see they have all sorts of things you can click on, but let's go to download. And you can see you can very simply download OpenOffice version 3.4, and again, what you'll get is different programs that really match Microsoft Office. You'll get a program for word processing, you'll get one for an Excel equivalent, a PowerPoint equivalent, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to say that they are 100% the same as you would get if you had Microsoft Office, but they're pretty close. Here's a list of the programs that come in OpenOffice. You can see Writer, which is Word, Calc, which is Excel, Impress is PowerPoint, Draw is actually more of an Adobe program, but they include it in here. Base is equivalent to Microsoft Access. And Math is actually a new addition to OpenOffice that lets you do equations and take some of the elements of Excel and some of the elements of Word and kind of puts them together. And again, this is 100% legal, 100% free. So if you're somebody who does not have your own copy of Microsoft Office, this is a great alternative. Okay, and the other ones I'm going to let you take a look at on your own. They're all great programs depending on the needs that you have. Okay, now that's open source. If you Google, let's say we Google open source software list, if we're not even sure of what we want, here's a great page, opensourcewindows.org. This will show us, just again, more titles. Mozilla Firefox, if any of you are using that as your web browser, that's an open source program. And these are just some other examples, some of which were on my list, some of which are new to the list. Mozilla Thunderbird is made by the same company as Firefox, and this is a free version of Microsoft Outlook. A lot of people use that. VLC, we mentioned. Media Player Classic is another great video player. And you can go through this list yourself. Here's Audacity, which we looked at, and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of options available in the open source category. And I would definitely encourage you, if you're looking for something that could help your productivity, I would definitely encourage you to check, before you spend a lot of money, check the open source alternatives. Okay. So now let's talk about private materials. These are materials that are not open source, that belong to a specific person or a specific company. These are materials that have a copyright mark, materials that require a serial number. If you were to install, if we were to come here and go to Microsoft Office's website and go to download purchase and download a copy of Microsoft Office, we would be provided with a serial number. Now, you could go online and through various sources, you could download different versions of Microsoft Office. However, it would always ask you at the end of the day for a serial number. And that's the dead giveaway. If something's asking you for a serial number and they haven't provided it to you, then that's a copywritten material. Just because you could probably find a free serial number online someplace, or you could watch a video of how to circumvent the serial number request, that's not okay. And again, I'm not judging. You can decide for yourselves what you're comfortable doing, but this is considered private materials. Programs in this category would include Microsoft Office, Adobe, things that you use like that, Acrobat, as well as certain video files. If you wanted to see the new Hobbit movie, for example, that's still in theaters, at least here in Israel. That hasn't been released publicly and certainly is not available for free. Could you download it online? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that it's legal to do, because that would definitely be considered a copyrighted material. Okay, so here are some other examples. Microsoft Office, like we said, Adobe Creative Suite, Media Semantics, which includes a lot of programs for video authoring, Windows operating systems. If you want to upgrade to Windows 8, just because you can find a free copy online, it doesn't mean that it's okay. The basic rule of thumb is if you want to purchase any of these types of programs, go to the program's website, go to Microsoft.com or go to Adobe.com. Don't go and try to find it on some other shady, less legitimate website. So that's generally what the advice that I give people. Okay, so that takes us through two categories. The third category we looked at was public domain, things that are completely free, that companies that we saw before, while Adobe may not want you to illegally download Photoshop, they do give us certain programs and certain resources that are free for the taking. They include Windows Media Player, like I said, that comes on just about every PC you get. Adobe Acrobat Reader, again, we all have gotten PDFs. If we haven't installed it, it's probably because it was already installed in our machines when we got it. Adobe Flash is a plugin that you need to play many online videos and to make most websites work correctly. Again, all these things are free. All these things are probably pre-installed on most computers that you buy nowadays. WinRAR is a program that's used to unzip files. If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. You can Google it, but chances are it's already installed on your machine. Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox. Like I said, Firefox is officially an open source program, but the other ones, Internet Explorer and Chrome, Microsoft wants you to use these things. Google wants you to use Chrome to get online. They're making this software available for you in the public domain. YouTube videos. If a video is on YouTube, can you show it freely? And the answer is yes. You can't take it offline without permission, but you can show any YouTube video, or you can watch any YouTube video. If it's on YouTube, it's now part of the public domain. It's available. And finally, common media, like we said before, if you need to get an audio file of Hatikva, or a national anthem from a certain country, or like I said before, a page of the Bible or a page of Talmud. These are things that are considered to be public domain. We don't have to give God a citation when if we quote something from Tanakh. Everybody knows where it comes from. So these are things that would be in the public domain category. Okay, now, what I'd like you to do for this week, we've taken a look at the different types of software that are available. We've taken a look at some ways that you can stay safe online. And what I'd like you to try this week, first of all, choose an open source software option that either from this presentation or one that you find online yourself. And I want you to download and install it to your computer. Try to pick something that could help you in your classroom or as a preparation tool. In other words, if you've always wanted to try to edit pictures, download and install paint.net. Or if you want to try playing around with some audio editing, download Audacity. You can pick, and again, you can take it either from this presentation or you can get it from your own internet search. After you have tried it out, send me a short product review, which includes what you liked and disliked about the program. So for example, let's say you pick Audacity as your example. Tell me what you thought. Was it easy to use? Was it intuitive? Did it do what you thought it would do? And finally, include a brief idea of how the chosen program may be helpful to you from an educational perspective. Again, using Audacity is the example. Maybe you could envision yourself using it for a specific classroom project or as a class preparation tool. That's basically what I want you to do this week. So hopefully it won't take you too long. And again, if you're trying to catch up on past assignments and past week's video recordings, hopefully this one will be a rather quick one for you. But I want you to get used to this idea of open source because the resources available are just so great, and they're continuing to grow. Finally, the last thing, I didn't write it here, but I just wanted to make an offer. If you ever get something that you're not sure is legitimate, we talked about phishing, we talked about emails that you may get asking you for information. The best way, like I said, was to call your financial institution, to call the bank, to call the credit card company. But you can always feel free also to send me the email, to forward it to me and say, what do you think? And I'll be happy to try to give you my opinion as well. So again, here's my contact information, which I'm sure you have by now. Again, all of our presentations are available on our website. You can download this entire presentation and have all of the links available for you. Okay, in this week's lesson, we took a look at how we can make sure that the web-based content we're using is accurate and legitimate. And we also took a look at different ways that we can utilize some of the resources that are available to us online. We saw just a few examples, but you can now go ahead and look for even more on your own. And what I'd like you to do, as we reviewed in our task this week, I'd like you to take a look this week at one of the open sourced software options and to try it out and send me your thoughts and send me a short review on the program or the platform that you choose. Next week, we will be talking about using online resources for language learning. We'll take a look at Hebrew language learning options as well as some other foreign language options as well. So I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.